The morning sun filtered gently through the dusty window pane, casting golden threads across the concrete floor. The air was still, touched with the softness of early light. Inside a quiet kennel, Hunter, a German shepherd with eyes that held stories too heavy for words, lay motionless behind the bars, staring at a tiny lavender flower someone had left at his gate just after dawn. Where are you listening to this story from right now? Let me know in the comments, and let's share a moment together, because sometimes healing begins in the quiet warmth of a new morning. Hunter lay curled in the farthest corner of his kennel, his deep brown eyes fixed warily on the gate. The morning sun cast gentle beams through the metal bars, illuminating faint scars hidden beneath his dense black and tan coat. Once proud and fearless, Hunter had been one of the most respected German shepherds in the K9 unit. He'd led search and rescue operations and faced danger without hesitation, until that fateful night when an explosion stole more than his courage. It robbed him of trust. Ever since, every approaching footstep made his muscles tense and ears flatten with suspicion. This morning felt different. The staff at Willow Creek Rescue whispered quietly about visitors. Hunter shifted uneasily, ears flickering toward the soft chatter of volunteers guiding newcomers through the facility. He lifted his head, nose twitching at the faint floral scent drifting through the air. Lavender. The fragrance was gentle, unfamiliar, yet comforting. Outside the kennel stood Ellie, an 8-year-old girl wearing a simple lavender dress that matched her bouquet of tiny wildflowers. Her soft chestnut curls framed a delicate face, pale and marked by sadness. She held her mother's hand tightly, yet her hazel eyes were distant, lost in a world where words seldom escaped her lips. Ellie hadn't spoken since losing her father in a sudden car accident months before. Her grief had rendered her mute, the trauma silencing her once joyful laughter. Her mother, Saraha, slender woman with warm brown eyes and an air of gentle patience, guided Ellie slowly along the aisle of kennels. "Look, Ellie," Sarah said softly, crouching to her daughter's level. "Each one of them has a story, just like you. Maybe one will understand yours." Ellie's eyes wandered briefly from cage to cage until they landed upon Hunter. Their gazes locked, and an unexpected chill ran down Hunter's spine. Instinct told him to retreat deeper into his shelter, yet something about Ellie's silent gaze held him in place. She stepped closer, releasing her mother's hand and gently kneeling just outside his gate. Without a word, Ellie delicately placed one of the lavender flowers onto the cold concrete floor, nudging it forward until it rested close to Hunter's paw. Hunter stiffened, yet curiosity battled with fear. He hesitated, watching the fragile blossom as though it held an answer he desperately needed. Ellie remained still, her breathing calm, fingers clasped together patiently in her lap. Time paused as these two wounded souls studied one another, each silently questioning if trust could ever bloom again from the ashes of their past. Sarah watched from a short distance, her heart aching yet hopeful. The volunteers, noticing the unusual quiet, slowed their movements, sensing a rare connection forming before their eyes. Hunter's rigid posture slowly softened, and cautiously, he lowered his head, inhaling the flower's sweet, delicate scent. Ellie's eyes widened slightly, a brief spark illuminating the shadows in her expression. The kennel manager, Ben, a kind man with graying hair and gentle wisdom, approached Sarah quietly. "That's Hunter," he whispered. "No one has gotten close to him since he arrived. He was an incredible dog before, but now he barely tolerates any of us." Sarah's eyes never left her daughter. "Perhaps they both just need time," she replied softly. "Ellie hasn't spoken since her father passed, and no therapy has truly reached her. But look at her now." Ben nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "the best healing doesn't come from words. Maybe Ellie can reach Hunter in a way no one else can." Hunter watched Ellie closely, the barrier of his fear slowly giving way. The little girl's silent strength spoke louder than any comforting voice he'd ever heard. She gently stood, glanced back once at the kennel, then walked away quietly, leaving Hunter and the small lavender flower behind. He sniffed the flower again, his eyes drifting toward Ellie's departing figure. Something within him stirred gently, a long-forgotten warmth nudging against his cautious heart. For the first time in what felt like forever, Hunter felt something other than fear, a quiet flicker of hope. Days at Willow Creek, rescue drifted slowly, each one marked by Ellie's quiet visits. Each afternoon after school, Ellie returned, always wearing something lavender, her slender fingers holding a fresh flower of the same delicate hue. She never spoke, but her gentle presence began to fill the emptiness of Hunter's days. The German Shepherd watched from his corner, his cautious gaze never leaving her face, as if trying to decipher an unspoken language only the two of them shared. From the corner of his kennel, Hunter observed how Ellie softly knelt, placing a single lavender blossom near the metal bars. Her hazel eyes reflected sorrow yet shimmered with a subtle glimmer of hope, something Hunter found himself increasingly drawn to. Each visit brought him closer, inching toward trust despite his guarded instincts. He didn't growl or retreat anymore, though he remained wary. His deep eyes followed her movements carefully, curiously, as if Ellie held an answer to a question he didn't yet understand. Sarah, Ellie's mother, always sat quietly nearby, her warm eyes gently observing the extraordinary bond slowly forming. Sarah had shoulder-length auburn hair, often loosely tied back, and her kind expression revealed an unyielding patience rooted deeply in the heartache they had shared as a family. She never interfered, simply offered Ellie encouraging nods whenever their eyes met. Sarah knew better than anyone that healing required its own pace, a quiet, gentle patience that couldn't be rushed. Ben, the kennel manager, found himself lingering longer each day, amazed by the subtle yet profound changes taking place. Ben was sturdy, with a comforting presence, often seen wearing a worn baseball cap. He'd been around dogs long enough to recognize when a troubled animal was beginning to heal. It fascinated him how Hunter, once fiercely distrustful, now silently awaited Ellie's arrival each day, ears perked up at the faintest sound of her footsteps approaching the building. One afternoon, Ellie arrived slightly later than usual, a notebook and pencil in hand. Hunter lifted his head attentively, curious at the unusual items she carried. Ellie sat cross-legged outside his enclosure, opened the notebook, and began quietly sketching. The pencil moved gently over the paper, capturing images only she understood, occasionally pausing as she glanced up at Hunter, her eyes softening thoughtfully. Hunter shifted closer, intrigued by the quiet rhythm of her movements. Without realizing, he had moved closer than ever before, the tip of his nose mere inches from the bars. Ellie paused, slowly lifting her eyes until they met Hunter's gaze directly. She didn't speak, but instead held up the notebook, revealing a careful drawing of a German Shepherd surrounded by lavender blossoms. At the bottom, she had written a single word in faint, uneven letters: friend. Something stirred deep within Hunter's chest, a warm, unfamiliar feeling breaking through the layers of fear and doubt that had built up inside him over months of isolation. His heartbeat quickened as Ellie gently placed the drawing next to the small flower she had brought. Her hand lingered near the gate a moment longer than usual, as if silently inviting him to bridge the final gap of trust between them. Hunter hesitated, his instincts battling fiercely against the longing to reconnect, but Ellie's patient stillness convinced him more strongly than words ever could. Slowly, almost cautiously, he stretched forward, his wet nose brushing lightly against Ellie's fingertips for the very first time. A quiet gasp escaped Sarah's lips, and even Ben paused in amazement, both careful not to break the spell of the moment. Ellie's eyes widened slightly, and for the first time in months, a small, hopeful smile touched her lips. The touch lasted only seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Hunter pulled back carefully, watching Ellie's reaction closely, fearing regret yet hoping for acceptance. Ellie remained still, her eyes gentle and filled with quiet reassurance, offering Hunter the safety he desperately sought. She closed the notebook softly, gathered her things, and stood up quietly. Before turning to leave, Ellie looked back at Hunter, holding his gaze tenderly, her eyes silently promising to return. As Ellie walked away with her mother, Hunter felt a strange calm settling into his heart. He lowered his head gently beside the lavender flower and the simple drawing, breathing in deeply, comforted by the fragrance and the subtle scent of Ellie lingering in the air. For the first time since the accident, Hunter truly relaxed, his guarded heart softly opening to the quiet healing Ellie unknowingly offered. The days grew warmer, and Willow Creek Rescue hummed gently with the rhythm of summer approaching. Each visit Ellie made seemed to thaw a little more of Hunter's wary heart, yet he still hesitated at the invisible line separating caution from trust. One afternoon, beneath a soft golden sky, Ellie arrived earlier than usual. Her lavender sundress flowed gently around her knees, and in her small hands, she carried her familiar notebook filled with quiet sketches. Hunter immediately sat up, recognizing her gentle footsteps, his ears alert, heart beating quicker with anticipation. Sarah, Ellie's mother, was nearby, speaking softly with Ben, the shelter manager, about Hunter's gradual improvement. Their voices, though faint, carried hopefulness, blending with the distant melody of birdsong. Ellie approached slowly, her eyes locked tenderly on Hunter. Her gentle expression always soothed him, easing the shadowy tension he often felt in his bones. She knelt softly beside his enclosure, carefully placing her notebook on the floor, opening it to show another drawing of them together. Hunter tilted his head slightly, taking in every delicate stroke Ellie had made. Without warning, a sudden noise echoed from somewhere behind Ellie, sharp and unexpected, causing her to startle and lose her balance. In a heartbeat, she stumbled forward and fell awkwardly onto the concrete floor directly in front of Hunter's cage, scraping her knees painfully against the rough surface. The world seemed to pause as Ellie gasped, her eyes filling with frightened tears. Sarah rushed forward instinctively, Ben not far behind, but both stopped abruptly as Hunter leaped to his feet. The powerful German shepherd darted to the gate with intense speed, pressing his nose urgently through the bars, yet remarkably, he remained silent. His dark eyes were wide, filled with concern rather than fear or suspicion, completely focused on Ellie. Ellie looked up through misty eyes, startled yet comforted by Hunter's sudden closeness. Her small frame trembled slightly from the shock, knees stinging, tears tracing quiet paths down her cheeks. Sarah reached carefully to help her daughter, but Ellie gently shook her head, eyes never leaving Hunter's gaze. Hunter stood motionless, his breath warm against Ellie's face, offering silent reassurance through the metal barrier separating them. Ellie, who had been trapped in silence for months, felt something shift deep within her heart, a pressure desperate to be released. Slowly, carefully, her lips parted, and a fragile voice emerged, soft and barely audible. "Hunter," she whispered weakly, her voice trembling yet clear enough to echo gently around them. The single word seemed to hang, suspended in the air, powerful and miraculous, marking a turning point that left everyone stunned. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide and shimmering with emotion, disbelief quickly transforming into overwhelming joy. Ben stood equally shocked, his usually calm demeanor replaced by open astonishment. Hunter tilted his head further, ears pricking forward at the sound of Ellie's voice, a sound he had never heard before, but recognized immediately as something profoundly special. Ellie repeated the word again, this time slightly louder, steadier. "Hunter," she said softly, extending her small hand slowly toward him through the bars, inviting him to meet her halfway. Hunter paused only a moment, his deep brown eyes filled with gentle wonder, before leaning forward and carefully touching his nose to Ellie's fingertips. The warmth of his breath brushed gently across her skin, solidifying the delicate bond that had silently grown between them. Sarah approached carefully now, softly kneeling beside her daughter, tears of relief and gratitude filling her eyes. Ellie turned, reaching instinctively to embrace her mother, still softly whispering Hunter's name, as if the word itself carried healing power. Hunter remained quietly watching, comforted by the warmth that had enveloped them all. As Ben quietly moved closer, he placed a reassuring hand on Sarah's shoulder, smiling knowingly. The shelter had seen many heartwarming moments, but this quiet breakthrough felt deeper, more transformative than any he'd witnessed before. Hunter, once wary and distant, had finally crossed the barrier of fear, stepping carefully into the tender embrace of trust and compassion. That evening, after everyone had left, Hunter lay peacefully in his kennel, a gentle calm filling his heart. Beside him was Ellie's notebook, left open intentionally by her small hands, a drawing of their first genuine touch illuminated softly by moonlight. Hunter lowered his head, breathing deeply, finally feeling safe enough to close his eyes fully, dreaming quietly of lavender fields and the gentle voice that had finally broken the silence between them. Clouds gathered ominously over Willow Creek, painting the skies in shades of deep charcoal and steel gray. The air grew heavy, tension swirling with each gust of wind, whispering warnings of the storm approaching. Hunter paced anxiously within his kennel, sensing the unease vibrating through the rescue shelter. His instincts, honed by years of training, never lied, and every fiber in his being told him danger loomed. In her small bedroom, Ellie watched raindrops streak down her window, heart fluttering anxiously. She hugged her lavender sweater tightly around her thin frame, thoughts consumed by Hunter. News reports flashed on the television downstairs, warning of rising floodwaters and urging residents to stay indoors. Ellie's mother, Sarah, busily secured their home, checking windows and doors, unaware of the quiet determination forming in Ellie's heart. Ellie knew storms frightened Hunter deeply, stirring memories of the disaster that had first wounded him. Her thoughts raced. She couldn't bear the idea of Hunter facing this storm alone. Without telling her mother, Ellie slipped silently out the back door, rain soaking her clothes within moments, the lavender sweater darkening with moisture. Driven by pure compassion, she ran toward Willow Creek Rescue, her small feet splashing through puddles that grew deeper and more menacing with every step. Inside the shelter, Ben moved urgently, securing kennels and calming frightened animals, his rugged face tense. His phone buzzed, warning messages lighting up his screen as the storm intensified outside. Hunter pressed against his cage, ears flattened, anxiety growing unbearable, his heart desperately seeking the calming presence of Ellie. The wind howled fiercely as Ellie approached the shelter gates, now partly submerged by rapidly rising floodwaters. Panic surged through her small body as the forceful currents tugged at her legs. She stumbled, slipping forward, her cry muffled by the deafening rain. Struggling, she found herself trapped, water rising swiftly around her, terror gripping her throat. Inside, Hunter's ears shot upright at the faint, unmistakable sound of Ellie's frightened voice, barely audible through the roaring storm. His protective instincts ignited, overwhelming every ounce of lingering fear. Desperate, he slammed against the kennel door, again and again, muscles straining with unyielding determination. Ben turned, alarmed by Hunter's frantic movements, rushing to calm him, but Hunter's eyes blazed fiercely, conveying urgency that needed no words. Understanding instantly, Ben quickly unlocked the kennel gate. Without hesitation, Hunter burst forward, powerful paws thundering through the shelter halls, heart beating wildly with purpose. Ben raced behind, struggling to keep pace with the determined German shepherd, both moving swiftly toward Ellie's weakening cries. Outside, Ellie clung desperately to a partially submerged fence post, her slender arms trembling from exhaustion. The relentless rain blurred her vision, hope fading as she called out weakly once more, "Hunter!" Suddenly, through the storm's fury, she glimpsed Hunter's familiar silhouette charging toward her, his fur slick with rain, eyes burning with resolve. Hunter reached the floodwaters, his strong body plunging fearlessly into the rising current. Battling the relentless pull, he paddled fiercely toward Ellie, never wavering. Reaching her side, he pressed firmly against her, allowing Ellie to cling tightly to his sturdy frame. Her arms wrapped instinctively around his neck, trusting completely in his strength, tears blending with the rain as relief flooded her heart. Ben finally arrived, gasping as he saw Hunter bravely shielding Ellie from the powerful current. Carefully, Ben waded forward, extending his strong arms toward them, guiding Ellie safely back toward solid ground, Hunter remaining protectively close. Together, they fought through the storm, each step a testament to courage and unwavering devotion. Sarah, frantic and soaked, arrived moments later, sweeping Ellie tearfully into her embrace, gratitude streaming down her face along with the rain. Ellie clung tightly to her mother, whispering Hunter's name over and over, her voice stronger, clearer now. Hunter stood calmly at their side, panting softly, eyes gentle, the fierce storm within his own heart finally calming. Later that night, wrapped warmly in dry blankets, Ellie nestled beside Hunter inside the shelter office. Outside, the storm gradually faded, leaving behind quiet raindrops gently tapping the windows. Ellie softly stroked Hunter's damp fur, grateful for the bravery that had brought him to her side when she needed him most. Hunter sighed deeply, resting his head in Ellie's lap, sensing peace returning to both their wounded hearts. Together, they had faced fear once again, emerging stronger, bound by a trust and affection that could never be broken. For Ellie and Hunter, the storm had not destroyed, it had healed. Hunter battled fiercely against the surging floodwaters, each powerful stroke testing the limits of his courage and strength. Rain hammered relentlessly from the dark sky, mingling with the sharp pang of exhaustion coursing through his muscles. Despite this, the German shepherd pressed forward, determined to shield Ellie from harm at any cost. Ellie's trembling hands clung desperately to Hunter's thick, sodden fur. Her lavender sweater, soaked through, clung heavily to her shivering frame, yet she trusted implicitly in Hunter's unwavering strength. Her voice, weak and fearful, echoed faintly through the storm, pleading for help, her cries blending seamlessly with the tempestuous roar of the flood. Hunter carefully maneuvered Ellie toward higher ground, each push through the turbulent water more arduous than the last. Nearby, Ben, the shelter manager, urgently called for emergency assistance, his rugged face tense and anxious. Beside him stood Sarah, Ellie's mother, soaked by the rain, tears mingling with raindrops as she desperately scanned the dark, swirling currents for any sign of her daughter. As Hunter reached shallower waters near the safety of the embankment, his strong legs faltered, exhaustion overwhelming his steadfast resolve. His chest heaved painfully, eyes clouded with fatigue, yet he fought desperately to keep Ellie steady. Suddenly, Hunter slipped on the treacherous ground beneath him, a sharp pain shooting through his side. He stumbled, collapsing heavily onto the muddy bank, still managing to shield Ellie from harm with his own weakened body. Ellie landed softly beside him, immediately turning toward Hunter, panic surging through her heart. "Hunter!" she cried, her voice clearer, louder now, breaking through months of painful silence. Her shaking hands frantically touched his injured side, her fingers brushing gently through the damp fur as tears flowed freely down her cheeks. "Hunter, please," she begged desperately, repeating his name again and again, her voice trembling with fear and affection. Hunter, lying motionless but conscious, felt Ellie's warmth and love pierce through the storm within him. Her voice, once muted by grief, now rang clear and true, reaching deep into his wounded heart, filling it with renewed strength. Gathering the last of his fading energy, Hunter lifted his head slightly, pressing his wet nose gently against Ellie's trembling fingers. Their eyes met, conveying understanding, and an unbreakable bond forged through trust and sacrifice. Sarah and Ben quickly arrived, kneeling beside Ellie and Hunter, relief washing over their faces as emergency lights flashed through the torrential rain. Paramedics rushed forward, carefully examining Ellie, who insisted tearfully that Hunter be helped first. Ben, understanding the depth of their bond, quickly reassured her that Hunter would receive immediate care. Gently, the rescuers lifted Hunter onto a stretcher, his breath shallow and labored, while Ellie clutched her mother's hand tightly, her eyes never leaving her beloved friend. The ambulance raced through the flooded streets, its sirens piercing the stormy night. At the emergency veterinary clinic, Dr. Emily Carter, a compassionate woman with gentle eyes and steady hands, carefully examined Hunter. Her soothing presence calmed those around her as she assessed his injuries, her brow furrowing with concern. Despite exhaustion, Hunter lay patiently, comforted by memories of Ellie's voice, now vividly etched in his heart. Meanwhile, Ellie, wrapped warmly in blankets, sat quietly in the waiting room with Sarah. Her once muted voice was now softly recounting her brave companion's courage, her words filled with tender admiration. Sarah listened tearfully, holding Ellie close, profoundly grateful for the miracle unfolding before them. After a tense hour, Dr. Carter emerged, her gentle expression radiating relief. Hunter had survived and was now stable, resting quietly after treatment for his injuries and exhaustion. Ellie's tears flowed once more, this time from deep gratitude, whispering heartfelt thanks as her mother embraced her tightly. When Ellie finally saw Hunter again, he lay calmly, eyes opening slowly at the sound of her familiar, soothing voice. Carefully, she approached, gently stroking his bandaged side. Hunter sighed softly, comforted deeply by her presence. Ellie leaned close, whispering tenderly, "Thank you, Hunter. You saved me." Her words, spoken clearly and warmly, resonated deeply within his heart. Hunter's tail softly tapped against the bedding, conveying his silent response, a gentle reassurance that no storm, no matter how fierce, could ever again separate the two souls now, forever bound by love and courage. Days passed gently at Willow Creek, carrying whispers of healing on each soft breeze that drifted through the shelter. Sunlight streamed warmly through the windows, bathing Hunter in its gentle glow as he lay quietly in recovery. His bandages had been removed, his injuries steadily healing under the compassionate care of Dr. Emily Carter, whose soft voice and careful hands had patiently guided Hunter back toward health. Ellie visited every afternoon, her voice growing stronger, clearer, a melody that soothed the German shepherd deeply. The storm had passed, leaving behind it a quiet resilience that transformed the hearts of all who had witnessed Hunter's bravery. Ellie's mother, Sarah, watched proudly as her daughter slowly but confidently rediscovered the voice she'd lost so long ago. On a peaceful afternoon, as Hunter rested on a soft bed in the shelter's cozy office, Ellie gently stroked his fur, humming softly to herself. Her lavender dress shimmered softly in the sunlit room, a quiet reminder of the bond forged through tender moments and brave sacrifices. Hunter closed his eyes contentedly, breathing deeply, feeling entirely safe in Ellie's presence. Ben approached quietly, a warm smile softening his rugged features as he handed Sarah a small stack of adoption papers. His voice gentle, he spoke softly. Hunter's journey brought him here, but his heart now belongs with Ellie. It's clear he's found the home he truly deserves. Sarah nodded gratefully, tears sparkling in her eyes, understanding that Hunter and Ellie needed each other deeply, their paths irrevocably intertwined. Sarah knelt beside her daughter, gently placing a reassuring hand on Ellie's shoulder. Ellie turned, meeting her mother's eyes, sensing the warmth and silent agreement shared between them. "Hunter," Ellie whispered gently, turning back toward the resting dog, her voice steady and strong. "It's time to come home." Hunter lifted his head slowly, eyes meeting hers, ears pricking forward as understanding filled his gentle gaze. His tail softly wagged, confirming his silent, joyful consent. On the day of the official adoption, the shelter buzzed with quiet excitement. Volunteers smiled warmly, hearts touched by the profound transformation they'd witnessed between Ellie and Hunter. Dr. Emily Carter arrived, her gentle demeanor radiant with happiness, joining Ben and Sarah as Ellie proudly signed the final adoption papers, officially welcoming Hunter into their family. When Hunter stepped outside the shelter for the last time as a rescue dog, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The air felt clearer, lighter somehow, carrying the promise of new beginnings. Ellie walked closely beside him, her small hand resting gently upon his broad back, providing mutual reassurance as they moved toward a future neither had imagined possible. Their story quickly spread throughout Willow Creek, touching the lives of many, inspiring the town with a powerful message of resilience and healing. Hunter and Ellie became symbols of hope, courage, and unconditional love, their bond teaching everyone around them that true healing often began quietly, through gentle acts of empathy and loyalty. Weeks turned into months, and Ellie continued to thrive. Her voice became strong and confident, echoing joyfully through the halls of her home and classrooms at school. Teachers and friends marveled at her newfound strength, noticing the remarkable German shepherd always waiting patiently outside the school gates, his calm presence a constant reassurance. Hunter, once withdrawn and distrustful, now embraced each day warmly, forever attentive to Ellie's gentle voice and comforting touch. Their bond only deepened, solidifying into something beautiful and unbreakable, a friendship built on courage, understanding, and profound compassion. Years passed, and Ellie grew into a young woman, carrying Hunter's lessons of bravery and compassion deeply within her heart. Hunter aged gracefully by her side, his black and tan fur gently touched by silver, but his eyes forever young and watchful, always reflecting the enduring love they shared. One quiet evening, as Ellie sat beside Hunter on their porch, watching the sunset cast gentle hues of lavender and gold across the sky, she softly whispered, "You saved me, Hunter." In more ways than one, Hunter gazed lovingly back at her, his eyes conveying endless devotion and gratitude. He gently laid his head upon her lap, sighing peacefully, knowing their journey had healed them both, forever binding their hearts through the extraordinary power of love. Sometimes, healing begins quietly, in small gestures of trust and love, proving that even the most wounded hearts can be made whole again. Just like Ellie and Hunter, we all carry the power to change lives with compassion and loyalty. If this story touched your heart, please consider joining our community, subscribing, and sharing your own experiences. Together, let's spread kindness, one story at a time.